Our first key term is imperialism. This is the takeover of a country or territory by a stronger country for their benefit. An example of this is Britain taking over India and parts of Africa and making it part of their empire to benefit from them. Make sure that you're using this example, drawing a picture, or using key terms in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is nationalism. This is love for one's country and a desire for independence. So it's similar to patriotism, but there's also the desire for independence. An example of this is India wanting to break free from the British Empire and become an independent country. Make sure that you're either using this example, using key terms, or drawing a picture of nationalism in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is imperialism. This is the building of factories and manufacturing in a country. This process grew the economy of many cities in America and across Europe. An example of industrialism is Britain going from an agricultural or farming country to a manufacturing country that produced goods in factories in the late 1700s and the early 1800s. Make sure you're using this example, drawing a picture, or using key terms in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is the Industrial Revolution. This is a time period of rapid technological advancements that led to social, political, and economic changes. An example of this is the time period in which people went from making products by hand at home, which is known as the domestic system, to making products using machines in factories, known as the factory system. Make sure you're using this example, key terms, or drawing a picture of the Industrial Revolution in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is urbanization. This is the growth of cities or urban areas as a result of a manufacturing economy, or where you make goods in factories. So an example of this is when large groups of people moved from farms in the countryside to cities for job opportunities in factories. Make sure you're using this example, drawing a picture, or using key terms in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is capitalism. This is an economic system in which there is a free market, meaning that the government does not control businesses. An example is an economic system where people can trade freely, businesses compete with another, and customers or consumers have a choice when buying a product. Make sure that you're using this example, key terms, or drawing the picture of the graphic organizer shown on the slide in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is communism. This is a system in which the government is regulating or controlling all aspects of life in an attempt to bring equality to everyone. So their hope is to create a classless society where there's no social hierarchy. An example of this is an economic system when the government controls all of the wealth and distributes it to everyone equally. So there is no social classes. Everyone is equal and has the same amount of wealth. Make sure you're using this example, key terms, or drawing a picture of this in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is factory. These were buildings equipped for mass production due to the assembly line. This is where most of the work was done during the Industrial Revolution. An example of a factory is the Lowell Mills, which were in Massachusetts, where many women made textiles or clothing. Make sure that you're using this example, key terms, or drawing a picture of a factory in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is the Berlin Conference, also known as the Scramble for Africa. This was a meeting between the major European powers in 1884 that established the rules for the division of Africa. The significance is that this meeting between European countries divided up Africa between them. No Africans were allowed to attend the meeting, so it led to many problems like rivalries between tribes that were lumped together by European powers. Make sure that you're writing the significance, using key terms, or drawing a picture of the Berlin Conference in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is white man's burden. This was the racist belief that it was the Europeans' responsibility or duty to civilize the natives by making them more like Europeans. Its significance is that Europeans believed that they were superior to natives and needed to civilize them by making them more like them, or more like Europeans. It resulted in the destruction of the natives' traditional culture. Make sure you're using the significance, using key terms, or drawing a picture of this in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term is social Darwinism. This was the theory that the Europeans' success was due to their natural superiority in the battle of the fittest. So this belief was that Europeans were culturally superior to non-Europeans because they were more technologically advanced. So the significance of this is that Europeans felt that they had the right to conquer less technologically advanced places because they were superior to them in this battle of the fittest. So please make sure you're using this significance, using key terms, or drawing a picture of this in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our next key term for this unit is the Opium Wars. This is when the United States and Britain demanded trade with China. When China refused, both countries began the illegal trade of the drug opium, leading to addiction, death, and eventually the end of dynastic rule in China. So the significance of this was the trade of illegal drugs with China that eventually ended the rule by dynasties there. Make sure you're using the significance, key terms, or drawing a picture of this in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart. Our last key term for this unit is the Meiji Restoration. This is the time period following the rule of the emperor and the samurai in Japan. It's also the westernization and the modernization of Japan as it attempted to become globally competitive. Its significance is that it was the modernization and westernization of Japan. So when they wanted to become more modern and more Western. Make sure that you're using this significance, key terms, or drawing a picture of this in the far right-hand side of your vocabulary chart.